This is the Philosominute, giving you what matters in about 5 minutes, starting now.
So, one thing I've learned is that when everyone is paying attention to something that really isn't that important to them, there's usually a much deeper reason for why they're doing that. A few days ago, a huge chunk of people across the US paid a lot of attention to the Los Angeles primary election. And frankly, it doesn't actually affect most of anyone's lives unless they live in Los Angeles or do business there. Now, this primary was special because Spencer Pratt, a Republican, was the most popular candidate in the polls, which has historically been a very Democrat-controlled region. Everyone has been expecting that he would get into the top two and then be able to run for mayor in November. The plot thickened, however, when out of nowhere the mail-in ballots and a random spike of votes at the last minute suddenly made him third place. He went from just under 31% down to 25%, and the other two somehow bumped up by 5% each. Now, talking about fraud is an inherently political thing, and lots of people get anxious just hearing about it. Most people on this subject, for example, would be arguing about the validity of mail-in ballots and voter ID, or discrediting people who are arguing about that. However, I'm convinced most people have the wrong framing for how we should see this. For thousands of years, we have not seen fraud and lies much in politics. And that's because you either honored the king under threat of being killed, or you tried killing people in the pursuit of becoming the king. When power changed, people died, and that was it. Now, people don't usually kill each other to gain political power, but that animus is still just as real. With elections, morally empty people who want to run things now have to pretend like they're good people in the public eye. Well, to be more specific, morally empty people have to look better than their opponent as of election day, which doesn't necessarily mean good. Being a good person takes work and time and effort, but looking good and making the other side look bad is a whole lot easier. Plus, it's scalable with lots of money. So, in a community of crooks, the idea of a fraudulent election is pretty reasonable for us to assume. In fact, we probably should say that it's less likely that any election is actually fully accurate. Now, the reason we put up with this, though, is because it's a rare thing to see these elections contested. In the US, the election cycles happen every 2 years, with candidates usually running every 4 or 6. And nothing really changes when 65% of the people continually like what the current elected official is doing. It only becomes public attention when the number gets close and the foul play is harder to deny. One really bad one in our recent history was 2020, with Joe Biden surging forward with lots of mail-in ballots that came from somewhere. Now, this whole thing has been a progressively worse argument over the last century ever since big radio appeared. Many of the previous stated crooks can pay lots of money to hire dramatic storytellers, who are called reporters, and they will be able to lie to lots of people at once. Reporters aren't journalists, though, because journalists do research and conduct interviews and examine facts. These reporters are more accurately actors, but they're very good at looking convincing, and they will flood the public space with whatever information they want us to believe. The particular games they play, though, go far beyond the scope of what I'm talking about today, but it involves many little language tricks and constant repetition with variations. Plus, they can bury whatever they want by flooding the space with other information and not talking about the things that they don't want to have talked about. So if you tune into the news about the LA election at this moment, you'll see absolutely no analysis on what exactly happened, and they've moved back to talking about Iran. It's almost as if they don't want anyone to notice, and they did talk at length about the counting process, but not the lack of ID requirements or possibly how there were people getting paid to vote. In a Democrat-controlled region, though, I guarantee you that if a Republican candidate won, the leftward news would talk endlessly for the next 5 months about how they resembled the Antichrist, Adolf Hitler, and all pedophile narcissists at the same time. And with the new historical reality that everyone can share things on social media with complete anonymity, the influence games are now about controlling a very outspoken mob. Now, there really isn't an easy or right way to fix this, though. When there's enough money, there are lawyerly ways to sidestep any campaign finance laws. Removing anonymity destroys independent journalism. Punishing for lies can work, but then we have to now define what a lie is. All we can do is keep the public's eye on everything and reward people for speaking up about any funny business. And as horrible as this, we could be so much worse off. I think we can all agree that fraud and lies are better than the standard alternative proven by history. And it's a blessing that I or you can put this here publicly without the threat of taking a ride in a van in the middle of the night and nobody hearing from me again. Many countries nowadays still don't give that kind of freedom. So, we could get angry about what we don't have, or we can be grateful for what we do. And when we do have a privilege, we are contributing the most when we rightly use it. You will do your ancestors well to speak up about things that matter, and the best way to defeat lies is through well-researched truth. Even the anonymity itself is a blessing. Anyway, I hope this added meaning, and I don't take your attention for granted. To reciprocate the value, go to stucky.tech/value, and please have a philosophically improved week.